It's time for another edition of Lewis at Large, 60 minutes of smart talk radio featuring guests from all walks of life in conversation with your host, Warner Lewis. So sit back and lend us your ears for the next hour. Now here with today's first guest is the host of Lewis at Large, Warner Lewis.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck. And of course, as always, some smart talk radio is in your future, and this segment will certainly be that for sure. We're going to be talking to Celicia Tays. Who is Celicia Tays? She is with Talent for Humanity. They are an international nonprofit organization conceived of by a group of individuals drawn together by a single vision of serving humanity and creating a better world through the entertainment and the arts. They have all received NPO's Human Spirit Award for utilizing their passion and creativity in the arts to do incredible things to improve the lives of others. There is a brand new workout called Talent for Humanity. Stories of creativity, compassion, and courage to inspire you on your journey. That is a very general introduction, but we're very excited to have Celicia here with us. Celicia, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Warner. It's great to be here with you.
Well, we're excited to have you here. We have never had anyone from Talent for Humanity on with us. So if you would you share with our Lewis at Large listeners a little bit about the organization and what its real purpose is, and specifically, what do you do?
Yeah, of course. So Talent for Humanity is, as you said, a nonprofit, and it was born a few years back, and it was conceived really by a group of friends, pretty much, and they were all in the world of entertainment, the arts, and culture in general. And they were also busy and involved with nonprofits on the side in the weekends, and that brought them a lot of fulfillment. And so all of a sudden, they started talking together and realizing, hey, what if we did this, this fulfilling work of serving, higher causes during our job as well? What if we fuse the two and actually use the arts as breeding ground for, as a catalyst for transformation of this society? So this was a few years back. And this book that you just talked about, so Talent for Humanity, Stories of Creativity, Compassion, and Courage, is the first of many works to come by the nonprofit. We're a very young organization. And basically, yes, that's the core of it is this statement, right, that we believe that we can all achieve something by using our talents, whatever they may be, to help make this world, the place that we dream to live in.
Celicia, you mentioned a lot of the people that are a part of Talent for Humanity in the fine arts, in the performing arts, etc. Are these necessarily well-known celebrities, or are these just sort of, so to speak, amateur performers around the world? Give us a little bit about that makeup.
Of course. So there's two different things, right? There's the people who started the organization, and they're not at all specifically well-known, renowned at all. But then in the book, we actually celebrate people, and that's the center of what Talent for Humanity is about. The three words are discover, support, and celebrate. And so we're celebrating people in this world of culture and the arts who have given their talent for the betterment of our, common condition as human beings, and they're not world renowned. A few are, and a few aren't. There's probably the best known of them is Reza, and Reza is a photojournalist. You might have seen his beautiful photos on the cover of magazines such as National Geographic. But the rest, we have singer and songwriter Lisa Hava, who grew up in Jersey, who now lives in California, who did a lot of activism in healing and community work in Palestine and Israel. There's Yara Craner, who is a director and a photographer, and who builds innovative communities such as Hatch, to hatch a better world through mentorship. So, yeah, there's a lot of different individuals. There's 7 individuals and 6 stories in the book.
What I'm curious as to how are these people found?
Aha, that's a great question. Really, it was through, some of them were chance encounters. A lot of them were just driven through meetings and friends and word of mouth, and there was a lot of research behind it because the individuals who started the organization were really looking to start a movement of inspiration, and so they just started looking. front, back, north, east, west, and then just hearing these stories and then seeing how moving and emotional they were, and then just universe made it happen.
Well, again, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio, and we're in this segment, special guest Celicia Tays. She is with Talent for Humanity. They're an international nonprofit organization comprised primarily of those in the performing and fine arts, and their mission is simple. They are trying to serve humanity and create a better world through understanding and sharing stories, not the least of which are shared in Talent for Humanity, a brand new work, stories of creativity, compassion, and courage to inspire you on your journey. Celicia, is there such a thing? Do you all actually have meetings, so to speak, or is it all done virtually, through the ability to communicate around the world? Tell us a little bit about sort of the makeup, I guess. I don't want to make you sound too corporate sounding, but what kind of sort of is a pretty loose organization?
Yes, we're a loose organization for sure. There is a lot of actual interaction as well, not just virtual. For instance, I joined, as you know, I'm calling in from Brussels, and so I joined about a year ago by meeting Terry Sanchez, who is the founder of the organization, and he happens to live with his American wife here in Brussels, and so that's how that happened. And so we regularly hold meetings, but the TFH community is very scattered across the world. So yes, a lot of it happens virtually. But for instance, with the talents that were chosen as recipients of the Human Spirit Awards, those who feature in the book, there were real encounters with most of them.
Would you, again, we don't have time, unfortunately, to talk about all of them, but let's just, again, for this interview, let's take one within the United States, if you would, and maybe one from outside. Share with us a little bit of the background of each of these stories.
Of course, I will. So I'll start outside of the U.S., and then we'll make our way back home, if that's okay with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so we'll start with Dia. And Dia, a very beautiful name, has a very varied ancestry, Punjabi and Pashtun ancestry, so Pakistani and Afghan parents. And she was born in Oslo, Norway. And so as she grew up in Norway, her father, who was a very charismatic, different, very, very convinced man, he noticed that she had a talent for music and she had an ear for music. And he always wanted the best for his children. And he decided that the music industry and the sports industry were pretty much the two industries where his kids could become famous and at the same time not be discriminated against because of their origin or of their gender. And so he really encouraged his daughter from a very young age, and he gave her the best musical education he could. And so, there you have it. 13 years old, and Dia has become this huge pop star in Norway. But at the same time, as her fame is growing, there's growing dissent and anger in the more conservative circles of the Muslim community where that her parents are from in Norway. And so there's these, she describes in the book these delegations of men who arrive at her home and try to convince her father to, don't let your daughter out like this. Don't let her dress like that. Don't let her say these things on TV. She's a disgrace. She's a dishonor. And so this becomes more and more. And her father keeps standing really strongly by her and saying, no, this is what my daughter wants to do. But it gets so bad that the threats become, concrete and attacks are made on Dia's life. And so when she's 17, she actually has to leave the country and she goes to London. And in London, unfortunately, this picks up again. And so you see Dia struggling between her passion, her love for her family that she's being torn from, and at the same time, this growing anger in her and resentment of saying, hello, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I can't fulfill my destiny and be who I have to be in this world. And actually, so another episode, she has to leave. Again, you'll read all of this in the book. You probably have already, Warner, but your listeners will as well. And so she moves to Atlanta, which will be her last move of the series, where actually for a while she's just in this fog of apathy and just being so overwhelmed by what's happening to her. But then what seeks her and what sort of is the birth pang of a new life for her is that voices start to seek her out. So women who have lived the same kind of oppression that she's living reach out to her and say, you have to stamp the snow down for us. You're known, you're a very well-known public figure. Speak out against this honor-based violence that we face on a daily basis. And that's where Gia becomes what she is today. And she's a very, very strong women's rights activist, and she actually develops other talents to do this. For instance, she is going to become a movie director, and she produces Bana, the Love Story, which is going to win awards and be an amazing movie on honor-based violence. So that's one example. Diaz, you'll read more in the book.
Right. I want to go back and talk a little bit also about you and your background. You were born to Belgian parents. You grew up everywhere from Kenya to Tanzania to Zambia to South Africa. Mm-hmm. You're a self-proclaimed citizen of the world. Tell me a little bit about the movement from Kenya, Tanzania, on and on and on and on. That was predicated by what? Your parents' work or their profession? Or tell me about that.
Yeah, of course. So I was 3 years old when we moved from Belgium to Kenya. My parents were actually already living there, so I just joined them with my mom. And all the moves were linked to my father's career, actually. So he was working in logistics, and he was head of various countries in Africa, so he was just kind of sent around a lot, which was a great blessing for us because as you can imagine, it brought with it a lot of adventures, a lot of identity crises, but a lot of enriching encounters, and just always being open to whatever was coming whenever we moved.
Right. So home for you is really the planet Earth, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But you also have advanced degrees in international development as well as modern language and literature. Where'd you go to school?
In Belgium, actually. Yeah. So that was probably my craving for the roots, because as you grow up the way I did, that the roots are really scattered. And so at one point I was thinking, but hey, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be Belgian and I know nothing about my home country. And so I decided to go back and study here in Belgium.
What about, as we drift back again towards Talent for Humanity, you have, so this original somewhat defining work is out. But so now what's the next step? What's the next thing? What's the next move? What is the next project, so to speak, for Talent for Humanity?
Beautiful that you should ask. And the next project and the next move is actually embedded in the book. The inspiration of it is in the book. I like to think of the book as the wings of the organization, and they're sort of it's wings of inspiration that'll just travel their own way. They'll be light, and we have no control over that, and that's really good. And my job as project developer with Talent for Humanity is really to kind of bridge those wings and bridge them with roots. Because what we really want, and that's the next move, is a grassroots movement. And as you read the book, you'll realize that every person featured in the book was asked to write a letter. And it's called A Letter to Humanity. The idea being, this is who I am. These are all the experiences I've lived through. And based on those experiences, this is the vision I have for the world, for tomorrow. And so you'll see in the book, and there are a few pages left blank in each book, and the invitation is for the reader to write his or her own letter to humanity. And that's where the roots come in. Because basically what we would love to do, and what we're actually doing already, is to partner up with cities, with schools, with old age homes, with all sorts of institutions and organizations in countries and cities the world over, and say, how can we help you do what we do, right? The three words that we use a lot in Talent for Humanity are discover, support, and celebrate. So how can we as an organization help you, city, discover, support, and celebrate the people who can make a difference in their community and in this world, and who have beautiful ideas? And how can we help you bridge those ideas into, or help them manifest into action. So yeah, the next move is really, there's a lot more concrete things, but I want to keep it mysterious because none of it is, we're not openly talking about any of it right now, but really that's the gist of it.
Again, we're talking interesting conversation on the organization called Talent for Humanity and a brand new workout called Talent for Humanity, Stories of Creativity, Compassion, and Courage to inspire you on your journey. And we're talking with Celicia Tays, and very pleased to learn about this organization. There are going to be those out there, understandably, they're going to go, sounds all real well and good for wealthy white kids. What are you going to say when you stare ISIS in the face? What are you going to say when you stare imperialism and those kind of imposing, non-humane groups, citizenry, political philosophies, etc.? And I know you're trying to stay away from politics, but how do you break through with those kinds of hate groups?
That, of course, is a very real question. We believe, and what the stories that we've brought light to tell us as well, is that behind any group there are people, and Reza is probably one of the strongest examples of stories about this. Or actually, Dia, the story I told you about before as well, right? Is she was facing real concrete hatred from a radical group of Muslims, and what she did is a very personal, conscious choice of bringing forward voices of women who were speaking out against this, and constantly and continuously speaking out of it, like from that place. And actually, she's gotten support of UN Women, for instance, United Nations Women, for her work, and she's gained international applause for her movies as well. And so I really think it all comes back to seeing the human beings behind any political group, behind any hate group. People who hate are human beings too. And so I think that's why Talent for Humanity is called Talent for Humanity, because we really fundamentally believe that every human being has the fundamental talent of recognizing and connecting to their own humanity, and recognizing and connecting to the humanity in the other person, even the hated person in front of them. So I don't know if that answers your question. Tell me, Warner.
Indeed. We have been talking about hope, and we've been talking about humanity and the hope for humanity, especially as illustrated by several people from around the world, compiled by a really extraordinary group called Talent for Humanity. They're an international nonprofit organization, primarily those in the performing arts and fine arts around the world, sharing stories of inspiration. And again, I would suggest, if you can, to pick up a copy. Our guest has been Celicia Tays. She's an spokesperson for that organization. Celicia, how can people find out more about the organization Talent for Humanity?
They can go to talentforhumanity.org on the internet. So we have a website. And there's a lot of information on that website. You can also pick up the book. There's a lot of information in the book. And in the website, what's exciting is that we've organized our community, our international community, around what we call circles. And so there's a community circle, there's a youth circle, there's a creative and celebration circle, executive circle. And so basically anyone around the world that's interested to know more and to somehow get involved with the organization can become a member of one of those circles and reach us through that. We're also on LinkedIn. There's a Facebook group, Talent for Humanity.
Well, thank you so much for sharing part of your day today. I know you're busy. You are a world traveler and a world citizen, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes with us. And down the road, we'd love to have you back on again.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege and an honor to speak with you, Warner. Thank you.
You bet. We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.